Welcome to the Ethnomed podcast, a community voice in the clinic. My name is Dr. Duncan Reed, a physician in the International Medicine Clinic at Harborview Medical Center and medical director of Ethnomed, a web resource for providers and patients with information for cross-cultural care. Today, we are continuing our interview series called Provider Pulse, where we elevate diverse voices from across healthcare fields to learn the paths people took to their current roles in healthcare, and how their cross-cultural experiences have helped them provide more informed care to a diverse patient population. Whether you are an undergraduate student considering a career in healthcare, a practicing health professional, or a member of the community, these conversations are for you.
I went to UC Berkeley with the intention of being a pre-med major and totally hated my first day of school there because everybody was just extremely competitive, really looking out for their own. And I did not enjoy that environment. And I thought if that is who I was going to be working with in the future or doing classes with in the future, I did not want to do that. I don't think it's time wasted to try different things. And whether that is getting the hands-on experience, like working in a clinic or working in something entirely different, like a different industry, I think that would be helpful and informative for people to know, yes, I do want to do medicine, or no, I could still achieve my own goals or priorities in a different way.
On today's episode, we speak with Dr. Kristine Cueva, an internal medicine resident completing her training at the University of Washington in Seattle, as she prepares to begin a pulmonary critical care fellowship at Harbor UCLA. Dr. Cueva reflects on her journey as a first-generation Filipino American, from questioning her path in a hyper-competitive pre-med environment at UC Berkeley to rediscovering her passion for medicine through hands-on clinical work. She shares how formative experiences in the ICU during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic led her to pursue critical care, and how the community at Harborview Medical Center has shaped her outlook on both medicine and life.
I'm Kristine Cueva. I am a soon-to-graduate R3, moving on to pulmonary critical care fellowship at Harbor UCLA down in Torrance, California. First off, I'm originally from Hercules, California, which is a town in the Bay Area. I've essentially lived there my entire life. Went to undergrad out there. And then part of my path to medicine is not that my parents were pushing. I kind of just came up with, being a doctor sounds cool. And I think with the whole immigrant dream or ideas, they were really excited about that and were really encouraging about it. I went to UC Berkeley with the intention of being a pre-med major or one of the offered pre-med majors, and totally hated my first day of school there because everybody was just extremely competitive, really looking out for their own. And I did not enjoy that environment. And I thought if that is who I was going to be working with in the future or doing classes with in the future, I did not want to do that. So then I switched and tried to do a number of things like econ major. That was really exciting for me. But then halfway through undergrad, I was like, let me try research. So then I switched back to one of those classic pre-med majors, but with the intention of doing research. And I got involved in what we called wet lab research. I attempted to do wet lab research in my senior year, and that was not enticing for me. And I said, let's try this pre-med thing again. And I knew that when I was going to graduate, I wanted more hands-on experience. So then I worked as a medical assistant at a primary care office, and then worked also for the front office part where I was essentially an office manager for a primary care practice. And I just really liked it overall. I think Berkeley's really notorious for being a hard university, and that I feel maybe kind of put out the winds in my sail for being a doctor, so to speak, and then actually being in the work environment of what I could be doing on a day-to-day basis. That was really encouraging for me. And so then I moved on to being a medical assistant and a scribe for an ENT office. Ended up leaving California for med school in Philadelphia at Drexel, and then came back for my last 2 years of med school in Sacramento, California at Kaiser, since Drexel had a partnership with them. And Throughout this time, I was thinking I was going to do general surgery or some type of surgery specialty, only to come across pulmonary critical care, more so critical care, because I did a sub-I in the MICU in July 2020, which was truly the first wave of the pandemic in California. And I think that was really a formative experience for me to see that while I enjoyed the intensity and the hyper-focusedness that you can get in the OR with surgery, I still felt like you could get that plus the teamwork aspect and the camaraderie aspect in Pulm Crit. And it felt more sustainable for me too. My body was really tired after doing a lot of surgery rotations, and I wasn't even the primary surgeon for any of those, so I could only imagine. And then because I knew I wanted to do pulmonary critical care, I ranked UW pretty high, and that's how I landed here.
So how long between undergrad and med school?
3 years in total, and I have zero regrets on that. I think it was a great time to just be, if that makes sense, and really experience more beyond schooling. I think also being in that work environment helped me to better understand how clinics are run and the different roles that people can have in clinic and how invaluable it is. And that's why I'm really appreciative of all of our MAs here. I know there's always ways to improve like systems of it, but regardless, even if it was a busy day and maybe people were being roomed late, I understand from that perspective what they're going through.
We didn't talk about your family background. I know there's a lot of first-generation immigrants or second-generation immigrants that are coming through clinic shadowing that are wondering, should they go into medicine? They maybe didn't have great experiences in undergrad, and it's not a sure thing. I was wondering if you have any other reflections about your heritage and your background and how that played a role into your decision-making.
So my parents immigrated from the Philippines to the U.S. back in the early 80s. I am a first-generation Filipino American, and I think it's very classic for first generations to carry the unspoken responsibility that you have to actualize the sacrifices that your parents made. And I don't think my parents were pushing me in any particular direction, but they were hoping that I would pursue something high achieving. And I think, again, me saying I wanted to be a doctor on my own without them putting those words in my mouth made them excited and even more invested in my future. I think to answer your question about people who shadow in this clinic and maybe come from a similar background, should they pursue medicine or not, or just things to think about, I don't think it's time wasted to try different things. And whether that is getting the hands-on experience, like working in a clinic or working in something entirely different, like a different industry, I think that would be helpful and informative for people to know, yes, I do want to do medicine, or no, I could still achieve my own goals or priorities in a different way. That happened to a lot of my friends too, who came from similar backgrounds. One of my friends, who's also a first-generation Filipino American, wanted to do law, and that was huge for her parents too. But she found that she started this job at Credit Karma as a legal operations team, and she felt like that was fulfilling enough for her, rather than having that JD degree at the end of her name. And she decided not to do law school, and she still is happy and fulfilled. My advice would be to just take the time. There's no rush, even though it may feel like it in the moment.
Thank you so much. So just jumping back, so you're happy to match at UW. How was residency for you?
Yeah, I will have to say, now that I'm towards the end of it, Chris and I were actually really devastated that I matched here. I think we overestimated my chances of staying in California, and Chris, being someone who lived there his entire life, was hoping that we would stay there. So I remember feeling pretty sad, actually, that I came to UW. But then in retrospect, I'm really happy I came here. Beyond the training, I think it's the community that I found here. I did not expect to make the group of friends that I did. And I really, really wholeheartedly see that we're going to be a group of friends that keep in touch and try to make efforts to meet up again. Because some of my friends ended up also applying for fellowship and getting in, and they're kind of scattered across the US. I will be intentional about making time for each other when we can, within reason. And also here, I wish I could have said more at the graduation without being such a crybaby like I am right now. But truly, I really love this clinic, and it was a great time being here. And everyone treated me here like family, and it was such a joy to come here all the time.
I think that's really a testament to the culture they developed over time here. And like you mentioned, a lot of the other staff is the MAs.
I told Azeb too that I told Chris, I love all the MAs here, but I always felt like Azeb especially was like a mom to me here. Yeah, I'm going to miss everybody.
So I think there is also that immigrant sentiment too, where I think there's this identification about where we came from.
Yeah, I think it definitely does play a huge part into all of this. And I feel like it made whatever little or lot I did here in clinic more meaningful for me because of my background and everyone's background here. I think everyone's culture here really values community, family, gathering, and really showed. I guess I've never seen everybody outside of the clinic setting until graduation. And I was like, wow, I wish I went to more things outside of clinic, like all the planned activities, because I would have discovered this aspect even sooner. I knew it was always there, but to witness it even more.
So maybe we should have more activities in the future is what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, I think you all do a really good job. For instance, clamming or doing low tide. I guess I don't know the words, but I think you all make an active effort to put together activities for everyone to go to. And for whatever reason, whatever my schedule was at that time, I wasn't able to go.
I think you're a resident.
Yeah, that is true.
I remember when I graduated, I felt the same way as you. And I think what Kerry Jackson said, these places don't exist like this by accident. And he said it's a very intentional process. And how you create those, I wonder what elements maybe in the future you can recreate of a place like this. I think it says a lot that someone's been here for 20 years or 30 years.
I was actually just talking to another co-resident of mine who's in a different clinic, and they were talking about how there was a lot of MA turnover at their clinic. And I've never seen that here. V, I know she's here occasionally, but she's still here. And Layla was technically still part of this clinic before she started working here. So yeah, it's a very unique and very special place.
And we were very lucky to have you. And I appreciate you sharing these things. This could be great advice for these undergrads when they see people like you that come from very similar backgrounds, that have the similar pressures, a lot of the similar struggles. I think hearing it from you and someone now that's extremely successful, going to go into Pulm Crit, do all these things, like the dream came true, you're happy, you've survived it, you have a loving partner and all of these things. And even though that you had to leave California and it seemed like a tragedy at the time,
yeah, ended up being such a positive thing. And that's why, other than taking time to explore things, I always say it works out in the end. Wherever you end up, in whatever field or location, it works out. I don't know if it's because I feel older, but I feel like the younger generation has a better sense of what is considered successful for them in the non-traditional sense, which brings me a lot of hope for them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to them and see. I wonder if the internet played a big role in getting exposed to maybe a greater variety of life experiences and different people.
Yeah, probably.
Because I remember when I was growing up pre-internet, the only people you really saw were the people that were either on television or the people around you.
Yeah.
So a lot of marginalized groups or countercultural types, if they weren't on television and they weren't in your immediate circle, you didn't really know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, Instagram started becoming popular at the beginning of college for me, and then Snapchat came on towards the end of college, and then TikTok didn't happen until, I don't know, middle of med school. And imagining exposure to that to someone younger than me at those times, they have a lot more, hopefully, comprehensive view than I did at that time.
And then you're finishing residency, a lot of burnout. How are you dealing with all of that? When you look back on it, is this something that was just outrageous and too much? Or how are you processing this whole 3-year experience?
Yeah, I think one, the community aspect. So after a really tough either day or maybe a whole month on a rough rotation, you get to see your friends or you get to see them in the hospital too and kind of commiserate together. That was really helpful. I will say I really threw myself into picking up snowboarding these past 2 years and being really intentional about learning that. I think that was my way of trying to counter any kind of burnout that I would have felt from this, because I felt like beyond investing into my own career or education, I was investing in myself to find something that, not to say that I didn't have other things that brought me joy outside of work, but this was something that was new and really pushed me in a positive way. So I think that's one way that I counteracted that. And it's actually something that I'm trying to continue down in Southern California too. Thinking about reclaiming certain things that I used to be interested in, or reclaiming some of the hobbies that I felt like at that time had to dedicate less of my efforts to. Now I can do it again. I want to learn tennis. I heard tennis is huge in Southern California and Chris plays tennis. I would like to actually be able to play with him. And learning how to play jazz piano. I'm classically trained and have been playing piano from 6 years old to 18 years old. And now my discipline is really crappy. So I feel like learning jazz piano would really push my boundaries and frameworks of what I know and be more expressive too. I think in residency, it feels like there's not enough time, but I think there is if we carve it out for ourselves. Not to say that people should feel pressured to do it. If you need to rest, please rest. But I look back at those times that I went snowboarding and I'm like, oh, what if I rested instead that day? How would I feel at the end of the day? And I knew I would have felt like I wasted a day, if that makes sense. And if other people feel differently, then that's okay too.
What do you see in the next 5 years, 10 years? What do you think the future has in store for you in terms, maybe not just professionally?
Hopefully I could take advantage of traveling internationally more. I already know I'm going to New Zealand in October for a wedding with Chris, and we're just going to explore more there too. So I see more traveling in the future for me. Chris and I are thinking about starting to have a family 2 years from now. And I want to continue to emulate being like Genji, for example, who's someone who has his work, his career, but then he also has many joys beyond that too. And so I think by investing in myself again, by doing those activities, just being more whole, I'm excited for that.
Thank you so much for taking this time. I know on your last day here, I appreciate getting to know you.
Yeah, it's a unique clinic, but lovely. And I mean that in the most positive way.
Thank you for sharing your precious time with us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Provider Pulse. Dr. Kristine Cueva's journey reminds us that a meaningful career in medicine can take many shapes and often begins with uncertainty. From her roots as a first-generation Filipino American to her path toward a career in critical care medicine, her story highlights the value of reflection, resilience, and community. We hope it inspires you wherever you are on your own path in healthcare. Here's a preview from Dr. Noga Rugel, our guest on the next episode of Provider Pulse.
I was intermittently sick throughout my childhood. I think I was still pretty good at school, but I fell pretty far behind to the point where I almost didn't think I would graduate high school. Growing up, I feel like I was told a lot that everything was in my head or I should go see a psychiatrist. And that was what the issue was. And doctors were pretty dismissive and wouldn't see me for very long in the appointment. And I would have to remind myself, I felt these symptoms in kindergarten. Like, that's too early to be making it up.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to visit our website at ethnomed.org for additional resources. Also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at ethnomeduw and on LinkedIn. Do you have comments or suggestions? We would love to hear from you at ethnomeduw@uw.edu. That's ETHNOMEDUW@uw.edu. Thank you.